While researching my books, I've personally investigated hundreds of abduction cases, but one man's story truly haunts me. His name is Jesse Long. He claims to have been abducted many times since he was a boy, and the abductions he describes are terrifying. If what Jesse tells me is true, then there is a very surprising future in store for all of us. Jesse, when do you first recall being abducted?
My first abduction occurred in 1957 when I was 5 years old in Rogersville, Tennessee, a very small town in Upper East Tennessee. My brother John was with me at the time. Above the hill behind our house, we came upon what appeared to be a roundhouse under construction. And one man, a taller-looking figure, he had a rod, long rod in his hand. A light was emitted from it, and we were paralyzed.
It is at this point that Jesse Long's conscious memory of what happened ends. He says it's only through hypnosis that he's been able to remember the rest of this first abduction. What you are seeing is actual footage of Jesse undergoing hypnotic regression.
You will not be
I remembered being taken into the craft, taken into one room. I was placed on a very cold, flat table. My brother was separated and he was taken into another room. They were doing something down to my legs. I could feel them poking and prodding around my legs.
According to Jesse, his abductors inserted a small item, an alien implant, into his left shin.
It was in my body for 34 years.
Could you feel it inside you? What did it feel like?
It was always painful. I always had to wear my socks below the incision point because it was painful.
In 1991, Jesse had the foreign object removed from his leg.
There it is.
This is actual footage of that procedure.
That's a good half-inch long.
This is the object that was in my leg. And unfortunately, during the initial test that was done on it, it was broken into two pieces. But that allowed us to look at the inside.
Some have dismissed the object as simply a shard of glass. But when it was analyzed at Southwest Research Institute, a materials analysis facility in Texas, the conclusions suggested a greater mystery. According to the lab's report, the object revealed a very remarkable composition and exhibited unique surface characteristics that cannot be explained, and that the questions outnumber the answers.
When the object was removed, I was convinced that whatever this object was had something to do with all of my abductions.
Jesse Long believes he has experienced a number of abductions since that first incident in 1957. And they became more and more horrific as he grew into an adult.
Most of my abductions occurred very similarly. When they brought me into the craft, they would take me down a long hallway. They would place me on a flat table. Of course, I was paralyzed and had to be because I was kicking and screaming. I didn't want to be there. The experiments on the table included a sperm extraction. The sperm extraction procedure was the most traumatic. and has caused me the most problems, in that they actually force me to crossbreed with what seems to be a female being.
What are we to make of such disturbing tales? Could stories like Jesse's be based on actual events? Skeptics say no. They're merely the product of an overactive imagination.
See, when you tell people about your experiences, do they believe you?
You know, it's not my job to convince anybody. It's my job just to tell you what I've experienced. If you believe it, fine. If you don't believe it, I don't care. Each of the children who were standing along the wall walked up to me lying on the table, and they each touched my hand as they walked by and looked me straight in the eyes. And they walked on out of the room. And the message I was getting from them was, we're okay. Thank you.
Well, there was a group of 7 of us men. We were working up in the mountains, in the woods. We had a tree cutting contract up there. And we just finished a long, hard day's work, and we were headed home. We'd worked late that night, so it was starting to get dark. And as we were driving down this rough track there, we saw light coming through the trees.
What the hell is that? Travis, man, what the hell are you doing? Come back! Travis!
Back then, you know, I was a kind of a wild sort of a guy. You know, I was showing off, you know. It was stupid. The closer I got, you know, and it wasn't going anywhere, and I was, you know, thinking about how foolish it was for me to be doing this, but I was kind of showing off for the crew a little bit, and they were getting pretty excited and yelling at me to get back in the truck. When I got up to it and I was standing there looking up at it, the sound suddenly got louder and it started to move, and it was making this sort of a rocking motion. And right at that instant, something hit me. Next thing I knew, I was regaining consciousness, but I was in a lot of pain. I saw these forms over me, and when I finally got it into focus, I could see this creature looking at me, and I just flipped out. I looked around, there was 3 of them. The one that was closest to me, I tried to hit him. I could hardly move, and my arm felt real heavy, and I was weak. Somehow got the strength to get off of the table.
Several nights later, Travis Walton reappeared, dazed and confused.
I didn't know how much time had gone by. There's something in the conversation, you know, made that apparent to them. He said, "Hey, feel your face," and I felt, and I had this, you know, week's growth of beard, and I was just totally shocked by this. So you've been gone 5 days. I had enough trouble just dealing with the reality of this incredible thing that had happened to me, you know. It was just so hard to explain what I'd been through, and there was nobody to relate to, and, you know, 29 years ago, that was turned to. It was just on my own.
We're seeing a unified program here with these beings. A program of physiological exploitation by one species of another. And I know this sounds absolutely insane. We're looking at a colonization program in some way.